Rev up your engines!
Well, I find it hilarious. Ford Motor Company now has to threaten their dealers. If they start breaking the sales rules of the F-150 Lightning, the electric pickup trucks, then they won't let that dealership sell any. Because people are doing these insane markups and charging people more money and not following up on contracts that they signed. I love their wording. This is what the spokesman for Ford says. Their vice president of U.S. and Canadian sales. It has come to our attention that a limited number of dealerships are interacting with customers in a manner that is negatively impacting customer satisfaction and damaging the Ford Motor Company brand. But they can't control their own dealerships because, of course, they're independently owned. They're out to make as much money as they possibly can. At the same time, Ford has agreed with the dealers that they're going to enforce the people who are buying these electric F-150s to say that they cannot resell them until after 1 year because they don't want their customers being as greedy as their dealerships are and then just buying an electric F-150 and then immediately selling to somebody else for more money. The dealers are already marking it up high enough. Well, they don't want the outside people to do the same thing. I think the whole thing is patently absurd myself. If you sell something to somebody, that should be it. They can do whatever they want. They want to blow it up. They want to sell it to somebody else. That's their business. But no, Ford doesn't want people to resell them. They want to be able to mark them up as much as they can and not have a competitor of the people who just bought them trying to sell them for more. Hey, talk about anti-capitalist. Here's what you can do with a vehicle you buy from us. What are they going to say next? You can't put dirt in the truck because it makes it look bad and it's bad on Ford's image to have a dirty truck. People already made reservations. The dealers were demanding more money up front from these people, either additional deposits or additional payments for the F-150 Lightning that they already ordered. There's so much greed out there, it's hard to figure out who's the greediest one. Now, this guy at Ford, the vice president, in his letter, he also said, the dealers shall avoid in every way any bait, deceptive, misleading, confusing, or illegal advertising as business practices. Well, half the stuff they advertise is that way. They'll say, oh, here's the price. It's $39,000, right? And then you get there and, well, we don't have any of those left. We got the $50,000 ones to sell you. You know, I mean, they've been doing that forever. They're covering their own rear ends, saying, oh, it's okay if the dealerships put in a provision that says, we require the buyer agree not to sell, offer to sell, or transfer any ownership interest in a Lightning within 1 year of purchase. If the buyer sells the vehicle within 1 year, they may face court action. That includes blocking the transfer of the car title to the new owner. It'll still be kind of sleazy there. That's all I got to say. If you sell something to somebody, it's their business, whatever the heck they do with it. They bought it. They should be able to do whatever they want with it. I don't know. I think they've all lost their minds myself. Now, you can buy our toaster, but, you know, you can't make certain types of toast in there. And French toast, no, we don't like that idea. It's supposed to be a pickup truck. People can do whatever they want with it, right? People have lost their minds, if you ask me. Well, if you're like me and wondering about the quality of these Ford Broncos, a guy in Canada has all these pictures of snow that got inside his Bronco during a snowstorm. And he claims it had the soft top. Everything was there, down. The windows are rolled up. There's too big of a gap, and the wind blew all the snow inside, and it's absolutely covered. Now, you remember when they first came out, they had to recall every single one of the Ford Broncos. They had problems with the tops and stuff, things not fitting right. Well, obviously, this one doesn't fit right. The guy went on a trip. He left it sitting there for 4 days and came back, and it's just filled with snow. This guy lived in Tuktoyaktuk, but it was in northern Canada. Now, you see those pictures, you think the guy left the top off, but he didn't. You get a gap in wind, the snow covered the inside of his vehicle. Movies about the Dust Bowl. Well, they had the windows and everything closed, sashes, and even all kinds of fabric and stuff and paper to try to stop all the gaps. Hey, that dust, the wind blew it in, and everything got covered with dust inside their houses, too, even though everything was closed. Same thing here, except it was snow and ice. Got inside his Bronco, even though it was all zipped up. It shows you they're not the tightest of vehicles, to say the least. The snow was getting inside. After 4 days of snow and wind, filled it up with snow. Not exactly a quality built vehicle, to say the least. CJ Buckeye says, I got 2011 Honda Odyssey I bought last year. I had a misfire in cylinder number 3 with new plugs and it runs good. I've heard about disabling the VCM for a long-term engine life. What do you think? I want to run this thing for 200,000 plus. It's probably not a bad idea, especially living in an area where they're not doing emissions testing, where it won't matter if you disable it. Just realize one thing. You got a 2011 Honda Odyssey. An Odyssey V6 engines, a lot of them had problems with the cams on one side of the engine. And regardless of what you do with the VCM system, if the cam wears out, the cam's going to wear out and there's nothing you can do. But if you do disable, there's less things moving around and odds are the cams will last longer. Anything that has less motion is going to last longer. That's why the older cars had a much better chance of making it to 1,000,000 miles without tearing them down because all they had was a cam that spun in a circle. That's it. It didn't have variable cam motion. It didn't have valves that had different durations on them. All that stuff is going to break. Eventually, there's more moving parts, there's more friction, more chance of things going wrong. So that's probably not a bad idea. But on the other hand, if you live in an area where you do emissions testing, no, you'll fail the emissions because that system will be disconnected or it'll trip a code and it won't pass the emissions testing. So you got to take that into consideration if you're thinking about doing it. Jerome 1 says, I got a seized air conditioning compressor. I don't want to spend the money to fix it. Could I just bypass it? If you can find a belt that fits and goes tight, sure. Now, generally, you'd have to take the air conditioning compressor off because it's going to get in the way of a belt, right? And for some manufacturers, what you might do is Google it and check, because there are quite a few aftermarket companies out there that if you don't want to replace the air conditioner, it costs too much money, you can remove the air conditioner and they can sell you just a pulley assembly that you bolt where the air conditioning compressor was, and then there's just a naked pulley there that the factory belt runs on. You don't have to worry about finding a belt that fits it right for when you take the air conditioner off, because a lot of times the way it's set up, the belts go up, down, and around, and if you take the air conditioner compressor off, you can't make it work because that's part of the tensioning system and you won't be able to get them tight enough. So do see if you can find one of these aftermarket pulley assemblies that replaces the air conditioning compressor, because for a lot of cars, there's companies that make them. Gray says, I got a 2006 Toyota Solara, 126,000 miles. Can I change the power steering fluid? It looks dirty. I don't have any change it, but I want to make the car last as long as possible. Well, yes, of course. You could do my old trick is get like a turkey baster or anything that can suck fluid out. Suck the reservoir out, put new fluid in. Drive it 10 minutes. Do it again and do that 6 or 7 times and you'll get most of the old dirty fluid out. To top it off, since it's a Toyota, buy full synthetic power steering fluid, because the full synthetic fluid is cleaner. It flows better at lower temperature. If you got an old car, a lot of times you notice when you start it up in the cold, the power steering groans a little. Once it warms up, it stops. Well, the synthetic fluid flows better. It's much better fluid. It will last longer and it won't groan in cold weather because it flows better at cold temperature. And interestingly enough, it also works better at higher temperatures. Once you get going, it warms up. Pumps put out sometimes 1,500 pounds per square inch pressure so they get hot, and it can handle the heat too. So yes, it's a very good idea to do it now. Just do it and use full synthetic fluid and it can make it last as long as possible. Now here's a funny one. You know, Elon Musk has a satellite dish network to give internet to people that don't have all the fiber optic cable or anything coming into town. But their Starlink antennas have a little problem. Now, you know, those antennas, right? They're affected by rain, snow, stuff like that. Turns out that they got little heaters in them to melt snow. The local cats in areas have found out it's kind of warm in those little dishes. And if you check this picture out, a bunch of cats resting inside that dish because it's warm inside in the winter. And then it makes the reception bad with those furry kitties in the way. And the woman who owns them says, it's not like the cats don't have someplace to go. They live in a heated house. In the daytime, they go out and they'll sit in a nice warm dish. But when the sun goes down, then the cats leave and they go back into the house. Now, they say it doesn't shut everything down with a cat sitting on the dish, but it slows things down. And believe me, they're not that fast. You look at the speed of those things. Elon's always touting things that, you know, are a bunch of nonsense. The fiber optic cable is super fast. Those things are not that fast yet. They always claim, just like his cars, it claims they can go so far, but they really don't. And speaking of his satellite network, he's got all those satellites. The Chinese are going after it because one of his satellites almost ran into one of their satellites in outer space. Hey, maybe his satellites will be like his electric cars. They'll start running into things by themselves. Only in outer space now instead on Earth. And it isn't just the satellites. Look what the Chinese said. These incidents constitute dangers to the life and health of astronauts on board the Chinese space station. So they're worried that one of his satellites is going to crash into their space station with the Chinese guys inside. Yeah, you never know with old Elon what's going to come up next. He just throws them out and see where they land. Or in this case, crash. Or have cats sitting in the satellite dishes. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.